All right, your turn.
Speaking of very abrupt changes in tone,
Time for your
yeah.
horror-inspired.
So, nice. Congratulations. I left a comment. Yes, we did leave. Which fic was the one that you wrote?
Oh, yeah, that
It,
was
which who I don't. When did we read? Well, not JoJo. So the first fic we read then. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yes,
that was the
the
one
the Dave
Anna
Cat one.
recommended, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for writing that. That was a lot of fun to read. Very very sweet fic. Very fun.
Yes, yes, yes,
Yes, I
yeah.
did
We
figure it out eventually. I'm like, wait a minute, we only read two.
yeah, Anna's on the voice chat
She
right now,
is
actually.
on the call.
Hi.
Yes, thank you for writing that. That was delightful to read. um,
Yeah, we were that was a delight and a
that
joy.
was
I keep saying that I'm gonna archive them. I didn't do last week's. I need to do that, but like I do try to archive the read so like you can
yeah.
watch it later. I'll post the YouTube to our Twitter, or I'll send it to Anna so she can send it to you.
Yeah, hang out with
Yeah.
us. We're reading a bunch of fics tonight. Okay, so this one, this is my Jane Zine piece called The Palace of Cold, or just called Palace of Cold and Silence. Um, this is an AU story. It is, so I'm actually going to be, the preview I posted is shots of The Thing, which, if you have some spare money, and I did not copy the link right, I actually am releasing a physical copy of this zine piece. Um, I have several of them printed and can print more. It is a basically 50-page graphic novel. It's not really a graphic novel, but it uses a lot of
Oh.
visual formatting. Um, this is an
Okay,
A.
well,
Yeah.
hang on one second. Evolutionist is
Oh,
English.
they're
It is
going to
2
sleep. Oh
a.m.
shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Bye. Thank you for coming
thank you for
by.
coming. We do this every week, and I do try to back them up. So if you to our YouTube channel,
Yeah.
which is in our card, which is right here. There it
There
is.
you go.
That's where all the infos is, and including like some the backups will be listed there when or the
Nice.
replays of calling them will be listed there.
Here's
Anyways,
here's
thank
a
you for coming. Thank you for writing.
song.
What's
Oh
Here's a
that?
yeah,
theme
you.
song for your promo. Are you ready?
Yes.
Go.
That's it. Thanks.
Very nice. Just that part, just
Outro
the
music.
riff from Megalovania.
Yes.
Excellent. My piece is it's an AU. There's two parallel timelines. One of them is in an alternate version of the 1980s, where the Condess has invaded Earth, and in a very like blatant "we're aliens, fuckers, we're here now" kind of way. And the other timeline is the 1990s on Earth, focusing on two different characters. You'll see how it works. It basically is alternating between diary entries written by a version of Jane Crocker that's in the Antarctic, retrieving some unspecified technology for the Empire, and a version of Jade that's working for the U.S. Air Force. And reviewing these weird documents that she found in a sealed case buried in the ice in the Antarctic with no explanation as why they're there. It's a very like horror themed story. It's primarily inspired by Alien, the first Alien movie, and The Thing. So it's got a lot of that kind of like horror in the Antarctic vibe to it. It will be released for free online, and if you want, there's a link there if you want to buy a physical copy of it. Um, so this is Palace of Cold and Silence by me, Dr. Jane Crocker, PhD, February 18th, 1989. 2 gosh darn days to get us off the Imperial carrier and onto the continent. Then another day riding the ice crawler inland. Crocker Corp's got their dang setup right in the middle of the southern shelf. They said there's something further in that they want us to look at, but none of the Imperials were saying anything about it. Dad said it's probably some piece of Imperial tech that crashed in the ice during the war back in '61. I wasn't born yet, but from what he's told me, they had run a lot of drones over the South Pole, and the storms took down more than a few. Not sure why they're waiting until almost 30 years later to get this one. Probably they didn't even know about it until just now. The Condess is always interested in historical items from the war anyway. Probably the drone has some kind of recording device they can pull data off of.
All these holdups are unacceptable. We'll have a month before we're pushing at the start of winter, then we won't be able to get off the shelf until October. I know the base is equipped for the stay, but I'd just as soon not be trapped inside there for that long. Jake is riding along with us too. To be perfectly honest, I think having him along makes more sense than me. What in the world does an expedition to retrieve a drone need with a biotechnology postgrad? It's pretty, at least, I guess. That's something. We passed some penguins on the way in. They're adorable.
If anyone wants to see the actual visuals, I have it up in the stream. I have a lot of these like photographs and stuff. So here we have a picture of the expedition from left to right. Carter, Crocker, Dad. Stevens, Gustav. Riley, Crocker, me, English, Jake, and Grant. Jake makes a new friend.
I recognize some of those names.
Dr. Jane Crocker, Ph.D., February 22nd, 1989.
Oh, we've got a hydrate redeemed, by the way.
Oh shit, I've got water, thank you.
We're finally settled in at the base camp. First day in, we got hit by a windstorm and had to shelter before we even got to camp. The crawler almost blew over. The camp isn't much to look at. A bunch of prefab buildings braced up against the wind. Radio tower looked like it's about to fall over. Jake and Dad immediately started rooting around to see what they had for us. The rest of the expedition crew had been out there so they got everything set up. We have a terminal that hooks up to the radio tower, which gives us access to the CrockerNet. It's slow, but it's better than nothing. There's an old typewriter I can use for my personal notes. I don't want to waste generator power on the computer when I don't have to. The last expedition left plenty of junk behind. Piles of sketches and references and stuff. It looks like the main group has been excavating a structure buried in a mountain to the north called the Ziggurat, and they left behind their drawings and photos of it. According to all this, it's been 2 years since the last expedition. I was worried that I wouldn't even know what to look for, but it's more like I won't have time to go through it all.
Photo labeled The Ziggurat, Northridge. Department of the Air Force, Project Sunglass. April 10th, 1999. Addendum. The references to an expedition in 1987 are among several pieces of information that are completely unconfirmed. We have no evidence of any Antarctic expedition to this specific area referenced here in 1987, or indeed any other year in the 1980s. Moreover, to the matter of the location present at, redacted, referred to in the enclosed documents as the Ziggurat, according to all survey data and preliminary findings from Task Force, redacted, no such location exists. There is a large rock formation, known mainly as redacted. Other than that, there is nothing to note in this location. Photographs provided do indeed seem to depict redacted, but they have clearly been altered in some way as to add evidence of a structure where none exists. Further information can be provided to staff of Project Redacted and Project Redacted. Dr. Jade Harley, Project Lead, Project Sunglass. Base Camp from 1987. Let me just see. I'm trying to see where I want to stop. I'll probably read like 2 more pages. Yeah. Also, if you buy the physical copy, it looks like you're looking at it in a folder, like it has an interior cover that has like a note from Jade. Dr. Jane Crocker, Ph.D., February 27th, 1989. Finally got out to the Ziggurat myself after almost a dang week. Jake and I went out with a couple of the staff. I was talking with one of them, and she said they weren't here in 87 with the last expedition. In fact, no one was. It seems like the last expedition just vanished without a trace, which is incredibly ominous and bad. She also said that they had a really bad storm come in without warning right after most of the crew went to go to the Ziggurat, so that's probably what happened. It wouldn't be the first time that Crocker Corp had to write off a whole mission as a loss. They left a lot of stuff behind at the Ziggurat as well, but it's all torn up and thrown around by the storm. Mostly useless junk now, so we brought all our own stuff. We set up a temp camp at the base of it and set up overnight. It was spooky sitting there in the shadow of it. The structure is way bigger than I thought it would be, and I've got no clue who built it. I've been reading the logs from the former crew from the 87 expedition over the last week. It seems like they came here and set up most of what's here now. The previous trips had mostly just been scouting.
They actually got here in the summer of 86, stayed over winter, and then they were in contact until the winter of 87 when they stopped responding after the big storm. I found spotty journals and logs for a good chunk of their research. Mostly it's mundane stuff, setting up camp and weather reports and stuff like that. They talk a lot about finding the ziggurat on the side of the mountain, but ice and fallen rock blocked the entrance. They were talking about using explosives to clear it off, but also about trying to get samples of the rock to bring back. Crocker Corp and the Empire seem particularly interested in those samples, but nothing in the notes is very specific as to why. Jake thinks it's some kind of lost civilization, and I guess I agree with him. He keeps talking about how Atlantis was here all along, and maybe Antarctica was warm a few thousand years ago. That nonsense. And these buildings are old. Much older than a few thousand years. I won't know for sure until I get a chance to send some samples back to Crocker, but the way they look suggests tens of thousands of years at least. And the architecture of the ziggurat is like nothing I've seen before. Even Jake can't tell me what human civilization ever built something quite like it. Dad was worried about us heading over there. He said he'd stay back at the base camp and try to get the radio array working properly. I'd like to be able to check in with Crocker Corp HQ sometime and arrange to have some more equipment sent out. Also, another person who's familiar with archaeology wouldn't hurt either, to excavate the ziggurat beyond whatever the 87 crew was able to do. I've got some theories I wouldn't mind running by Dirk and Roxy when I'm able to talk to the outside world again. Dr. Jane Crocker, Ph.D., February 28, 1989. We went inside the ziggurat as much as we could, though there's a rock fall inside that means we won't be able to go any further without explosives, and those are back at the base camp. It's weird, though. The whole time I was in there, it felt like there was something weirdly familiar about it. You know how sometimes you walk into a new room and you get that weird prickly feeling all over your neck? Like you've been there before when you know you haven't. We radioed back to Dad, and he said that the main array is almost back online, so we're going to head back as soon as we can. I found something weird in the walls of the ziggurat. A fossilized snake of some kind. I'm not sure, but it's really old. Also, it's huge. I know the photo doesn't do it justice, but the thing is like 10 or 15 feet long. Jake said he thought it might be some kind of giant prehistoric snake, but he hadn't heard of a specific species like that before. All of this is huge. If the ziggurat was here for thousands of years, that means humans were here for thousands of years, which redefines a lot of what we thought we knew about human history and the climate of the world back then. This fossil, it must have been moved here intact by whoever built this place, and that's a gosh darn miracle of human ingenuity. We have this weird little photo, and I think I'm going to read this one last Jade page, and then I think we're going to call it. April 10th, 1999. Addendum. Again, there is dearth of information that would be able to help us confirm anything found herein. Were it not for the exceedingly unusual circumstances surrounding the retrieval of the container in which these documents rested, I would dismiss them as a hoax outright. I have conferred with a colleague of mine, noted paleobiologist Dr. June Egbert, and she concurs that the species depicted in the previous photograph is indeed similar to the remains of Redacted, which is discovered recently in Redacted. While this is interesting information, it only seems to strengthen the idea that this is perhaps some kind of elaborate hoax. That does not, of course, explain the age of the surrounding ice. Nor does it explain many of the details that are similar in so many ways to observable reality, but differing in key points. I hope it should go without saying that I was unable to find evidence of a Dr. Jane Crocker of any kind who would even remotely fit the description provided. Dr. Jade Harley, Project Lead, Project Sunglass. Alrighty. And I think I'm going to call it for now. Yeah. So, yeah, that's my piece. When it's posted, it'll I'm going to ship physical copies when the posting goes up, and it'll be available for free on in the zine and on AO3 as well. So, yeah. Read our things when we release them.